You know, it feels like education is always changing, especially with technology. It can be hard to really get a handle on what's actually working, what's innovative.
Absolutely. It's a landscape that shifts so quickly.
And that's why we wanted to do this deep dive. You, our listeners, sent in some really fascinating sources about ARTECNO. It's this embodied STEAM curriculum from Bolivia.
That's right. Developed initially for rural and low-income youth, which is key context.
Right, aiming to bridge that gap in access. And what really jumps out is how it mixes art, technology, and these really grounded cultural ideas.
Exactly. It's not just adding tech for tech's sake. It's rethinking the learning process itself, especially for kids who haven't always had the same advantages.
So the sources you sent give us a great way to look at ARTECNO's core ideas. We can see where the research backs it up, or maybe there are different angles, or even contradictions.
Precisely. Our mission today is really to unpack our techno using these varied perspectives you provided, sort of a shortcut to getting informed.
Okay, let's dive right in. One of the big foundational ideas is embodied learning. What does that actually mean, and how do our sources talk about it?
Well, embodied learning, basically, is this idea that we don't just learn with our heads, right? Our bodies are, like, essential to how we understand things and interact with the world.
Like learning to ride a bike. You can't just read about it.
Exactly. It's a full-body thing, balance, coordination, maybe falling off a few times.
Yeah.
Some of the sources really highlight this. Ionescu and Glava, for instance, talk about how our physical selves and our minds have to work together to adapt and learn, moving from, concrete stuff to more abstract thinking.
Uh-huh.
And Macedonia argues even fundamental things like language are deeply embodied, tied to our physical experience.
That makes sense. That feeling of knowing through doing. There was that point from Clue 2 about the body being the entry point for information and how we respond.
Spot on. The body as the gateway for stimuli and the tool for response. And Rashmawati points out that for younger kids, say 4 to 12, moving around and discovering things actively isn't just fun.
It's how they learn best.
It's absolutely key to how they learn best. That hands-on approach aligns perfectly.
Technology, doesn't that sometimes pull us away from being embodied? I'm thinking about distractions.
That's a really important tension. Houghton and others brought this up, the digital world, multitasking, notifications.
Yeah.
It can really fragment our focus, can't it?
Yeah.
It could pull you away from that full physical immersion in what you're doing. You might be supposed to be doing something hands-on, but the tablet is buzzing.
Right. So you have this natural way kids learn
Yeah.
physically, but the tech we give them might actually work against that sometimes. How does our techno handle that, since it does use technology?
This is where their approach gets really interesting, I think. They have an art and tech coupling. It's deliberately designed. The aim isn't to swap physical stuff for digital stuff. It's using tech to kind of enhance or extend that embodied understanding. So students might physically sculpt something in clay and then use CAD software to turn that physical thing into a digital model. Or maybe traditional weaving techniques help them understand network concepts.
So the tech translates the physical experience. It doesn't replace it.
Exactly. It becomes a tool for deeper exploration, for translation, rather than just another distraction.
That's a really thoughtful way to connect them. Okay, so the other big piece is STEAM science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. What do the sources say about STEAM more broadly?
Well, Quigley defines STEAM as fundamentally transdisciplinary, focused on problem solving. And ARTECNO explicitly calls itself an embodied STEAM curriculum.
Right, bringing those two core ideas together.
And that art and tech coupling we just talked about, that's central to their STEAM teaching. It's about that embodied translation, making something tangible leads to deeper understanding. But also something they call ethical reflexivity, especially with AI, which we should definitely get back to.
Ethical reflexivity. Okay, yeah, let's pin that. But thinking about STEAM more generally, Guillaume and others suggested seeing it not just as subjects, but as a kind of social practice, linked to community and sustainability.
Yes, and that aligns incredibly well with ARTECNO's aims. They really emphasize community mentorship, involving students from rural and peri-urban areas, places often left out in actual innovation discussions.
So it's about inclusion.
Very much so.
Okay.
It mirrors findings that STEAM can boost participation from underrepresented groups. Using locally relevant art and tech projects is their way of connecting directly to the community and its needs.
It's not just learning stuff in isolation, it's using that knowledge for the community, for the environment. That feels like a powerful way to think about STEAM.
It is.
But implementation. Mishra and others pointed out that putting transdisciplinary things like STEAM into practice can be tricky, right? Content, pacing, teacher training.
That's always a challenge, isn't it? While ARTECNO is designed for integration, those practical hurdles aligning different subjects, making sure teachers feel comfortable and equipped, they're likely still there.
Does anything in the sources hint at that for ARTECNO specifically?
Well, the process paper by Oliveira does mention the significant effort needed to build partnerships with educators in Bolivia.
Ah, okay.
Which suggests that getting that buy-in, making sure teachers are supported, is a really crucial piece that needs ongoing work. The framework might be integrated, but the classroom reality always has its complexities.
Makes sense. Okay, so we have embodied STEAM, but ARTECNO also puts a huge emphasis on being culturally relevant. That feels really distinct. How does that work?
This is where it really stands out, I think.
Yeah.
It's not generic. It's woven from specific Bolivian cultural principles. They highlight IANI.
IANI.
Yeah, it's about reciprocity, interconnectedness. It fosters social and emotional learning through mutual support. And then there's PACHA, which is also about reciprocity, but maybe more with the natural world, the context. It includes climate awareness, learning through difficulty, this idea of holistic cultivation. These aren't just buzzwords. They're meant to actively shape the learning.
That's wow. Connecting learning so directly to heritage and experience. And the two sources mentioned, they're aware of Bolivia's sort of international visibility gap and the need to communicate relatably, avoiding Anglicisms even.
Exactly. It's very deliberate, making sure it resonates locally, not just imposing something external. And this fits into that bigger picture in Bolivia, the move towards decolonizing education.
Ah, right. That was in the government program document.
Yes, that document critiques lingering colonial influences and aims to revalue indigenous knowledge. ARTECNO seems like part of that effort, addressing inequalities rooted in neglect, ethnophobia, lack of tech access, things Anderson and Jamillo pointed out.
So it's teaching and honoring identity and addressing historical issues, all woven together.
It's a powerful combination.
And that cultural grounding seems to flow naturally into ARTECNO's focus on social innovation. How does that link work?
Well, they explicitly call themselves a Design for Social Innovation project.
Right.
The main goal is tackling that education access problem in Bolivia.
Right.
So by getting students involved in art and tech projects rooted in their own context, the idea is to empower them, especially rural and peri-urban kids, to be part of high-value innovation themselves. It really echoes Wilson's ideas about designers in interdisciplinary teams using human-centered design for social needs.
Giving them the tools and the mindset to solve problems right where they live. What about those community mentorship programs mentioned? How do they fit?
They're vital. Connecting students with local mentors provides academic help, sure, but also real-world guidance, support networks. Mentors share experiences, encouragement, help students see how to apply their skills locally.
And the curriculum itself sounds like it builds those community skills.
Absolutely. It's designed to develop social and community skills explicitly. Things like peer review, collaborating on text and tech projects, cultural storytelling, community-led coding challenges, group textile and tech creations, even respectfully curating indigenous soundscapes. It's all about learning with and from each other. That ANI principle, again, mutual support, shared work.
That integrated vision is really something embodied learning, STEAM, culture, social innovation. Okay, let's shift to a very current element, artificial intelligence. How is AI being used in ARTECNO?
AI is definitely a key emerging tech they're integrating. The learning objectives are quite specific: understanding NLP, natural language processing,
Oh, sure.
learning prompt engineering, critically assessing AI-generated text, being aware of how AI frames narratives, questions of authorship. It's all in that Oliveira process paper.
So it's much more than just using ChatGPT to write an essay. It's understanding how it works and its effects.
Exactly. They're aiming for a broad skill set. Technical skills like prompt engineering, NLP basics, conceptual and creative skills like using language abstractly with AI.
And social skills, too.
Yes, that ethical AI literacy is crucial awareness of bias, even ecological awareness, thinking about the digital footprint. That ethical reflexivity module treats AI as both a tool and an interlocutor, something with its own biases and influence.
Equipping students to be critical users and thinkers about AI. Now, our sources had different takes on AI in education generally, didn't they?
They really did, a real mix. The Bofill source, for example, highlights AI's potential for personalization, accessibility, maybe easing teacher workload. Big pluses.
But with caveat.
Big caveats. Strong warnings about needing ethical, transparent use, protecting digital rights, and crucially, making sure AI doesn't just make inequality worse.
So, potential versus responsibility. But the E. Oliveira process paper draft seemed more concerned, specifically about AI in education.
Yes, it raises a really critical flag, that if AI education just copies the flaws already in AI, the biases, the extractive tendencies, it could actually harm education, especially for marginalized groups or when dealing with indigenous knowledge. It's a strong call for caution and critical thinking when adopting AI.
These opposing views really show how complex this is. How does ARTECNO's focus on AI literacy try to navigate these dangers?
Well, several sources, like Chai and Kong, stress how vital broad AI literacy is. Understanding the concepts, feeling confident learning about it, but also grasping the ethics, autonomy, fairness, transparency, privacy, and being able to evaluate AI critically in the real world. ARTECNO's curriculum, with its focus on ethics, bias awareness, and narrative framing, seems aimed squarely at building that kind of holistic literacy, trying to head off some of those potential harms.
It feels like the sources together show this tension. Technology, especially AI, offers amazing possibilities, but also carries real risks of making things worse if we're not careful.
Precisely. And ARTECNO, by its design, the embodiment, the cultural grounding, the community focus, the ethical layer for AI, seems to be a conscious attempt to find a path through that complexity.
It's not just grabbing the latest tech.
No, it's trying to weave it in thoughtfully. Human-centered, culturally sensitive, ethically aware.
And that E. Oliveira paper mentioned ongoing evaluation, right? Checking if it's working, if it could scale.
Absolutely essential. That kind of rigorous assessment and self-reflection is key for any real innovation in education, to see what the actual impact is and where it needs to improve.
Well, this has been incredibly illuminating. Looking across all these sources you shared, we really see ARTECNO's fundamentals laid out. That blend of embodied learning, STEAM, cultural roots, social innovation, and this careful approach to AI.
Yeah, the sources really bring it to life, showing where ARTECNO aligns with broader research, but also where those tensions and contradictions pop up, highlighting just how tricky educational innovation is.
We definitely had those aha moments seeing the connections.
But also the, that's complicated moments too, which is realistic.
So a final thought maybe for you, our listener. How might these core principles of ARTECNO, mixing tradition and tech, valuing the physical experience, committing to community, offer lessons for education elsewhere, maybe even where you are?
Yeah, especially as we all navigate this wave of AI. How do we keep technology serving human needs, enhancing learning, without losing that connection to culture and embodied experience?
How did you find that balance?
Yeah.
It's definitely something to mull over. We hope this deep dive gave you some valuable perspective. Thanks for joining us.